Why are we called Negroes? Why are we deaf, dumb, and blind? Why is everybody making progress, yet we seem to be lagging so far behind? Why are we mistreated? Why are we in this condition, stripped of our name, our language, our culture, our God, and our religion? Here in America, all of our religious training has been gotten by the preacher. He has told us of a heaven way up in the sky that we can't enjoy now, but rather after we die. But all of the years that we're living, for us there's nothing but hell, pain, torture, and misgiving. Yet the Bible speaks of a heaven filled with material luxury, which the white man and the preacher has right here, so we see. So my friend, take it for what it's worth. Your heaven and your hell is right here on this earth. So let's check back into history, which rewards all research and tells us plainly that before the white man gained entry to the East, he was living in the caves of Europe, a ravenous beast, eating juniper roots and eating flesh raw, till God sent Moses to civilize him and teach him the law. Then, following Marco Polo, an explorer, he gained entry into Asia and Africa. From China, he took silk and gunpowder. From India, he took jute, manganese, and rubber. He raped Africa of her diamonds and her gold. From the Mideast, he took barrels of oil untold, raping, robbing, and murdering everything in his path. The whole black world has tasted of the white man's wrath. So, my friend, it's not hard to tell. A white man's heaven is a black man's hell.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode with Dr. Ade. So today we have an episode titled, Is Your Fifth Dimension Sugar Honey Iced Tea Together? It's going to be very interesting. I love the title because we got to get to the point of what needs to be done. I'm going to share the screen now and put you center stage. And I have to compliment you on your ensemble there, the colors matching, because you know that we come from the generation that if you cannot walk out of the house looking like a box of crayons. No, you can't. You better don't you go outside with the mismatched colors.
I tell you.
If only you had two outfits, you better find a way to match them. That's right.
That's right.
Even if you have to sew up the tablecloth a certain way, wear that and make it match. How are you tonight?
I'm well, busy as usual. I had to go and throw something on. Put on a different hat, so to speak. And when I finish here, I have to put on another hat and do something else.
Wow. When you can wear many hats like that, that means that you have many different gears under the skull, in the brain. See? We have people who wear many hats, but they have no sense. See? So if you had no hat at all, trust me, your brain is more valuable because of what you have in it to share with us. So that's what we're waiting for. We're on the edge of our seats. People are like, wait a second, I got to be there tonight because that title grabbed me. Fifth dimensional?
Oh, yes. We are here. We are in the fifth dimension. Absolutely. Are we on?
Oh, yeah, we're live. Once that top of the hour comes, we're good. So you can start.
Yes. And can we open the chat? So that as I go along, people can chime in if they want to. Very good. Hi, y'all. Wow. We are still here. Praise God, we are still here. Despite everything, despite all this stuff that's against us, we are still here, kicking butt. Okay, let me get right into it. I was jotting down some names. I would like to thank all my supporters, everyone who calls in, everyone who leaves a comment, those of you who support through Cash App. Thank you so much. It helps a lot. I would like to personally thank Sandra Rice, Sandra Heron, Savita, Riri, Moses, Michael Blair, Esther Cole, Keto Camille, Faris Weeks, Ultra. I was just writing them down. I thought I had finished the list. I hadn't. Now I'm on the air. Embarrassed. But tonight's presentation is entitled Part 1. This is only Part 1. Part 1, is your fifth dimension-ish together? Yes. And I'm going to start out with 2 African proverbs. The first proverb is this: when the flood comes, it's too late to learn to swim. When the flood comes, it is too late to learn to swim. Common sense, right? But these days, common sense isn't so common. Another proverb is talk to them. Talk to them. If they do not listen, let adversity teach them. And it just has to be that way. Too many people have the habit of brushing off good advice. Well, oh, that's old-fashioned. And, you know, they have many reasons for doing it. But then that same adversity that was spoken of in the advice hits you. Then you think back, oh, I wish I had listened, but it's late then. Tonight's presentation is going to be kind of long. That's the norm for this platform, though. So this is part 1 of this 2-part video. In order to properly get into the subject matter, first I have to define and discuss spirituality from an African perspective in order to establish a foundation for the discussion that comes afterward. You see, the 5th dimension is a spiritual development, and we're already in it. Now, if you've been too busy to notice, we are in the 5th dimension. Perhaps you notice that time is speeding up. It has sped up. And a lot of people are commenting on the fact that time seems to be running much faster than we want it to. So we're rushing, trying to catch up, trying to keep up. And it's difficult. You might be in the middle of something and you look at the clock and you think, okay, I'm going to do this for another half hour, maybe an hour. You look up again because your internal clock said, okay, it's about 45 minutes or an hour, and 2 hours, 2.5 hours have already passed. We're in the fifth dimension. That's one of the signs that we're in a different dimension. So this shift is already creating a huge challenge to many people, especially to those who are still stuck in some of these outmoded belief systems, because these outmoded systems, and I'm speaking about religious systems. I'm a little uncomfortable doing so, but I have to move along and tell the truth. They are outmoded, these systems. People are stuck in them because these outmoded systems are not in agreement with the laws of the universe and not in agreement with the laws of nature. We'll get into it. Therefore, if you are stuck in one of these outmoded systems, your vibrations are being obstructed. You cannot increase your vibrations because your thought process, your consciousness, your mind, your imagination, all of those things are caught up in this matrix box that is unnatural, wicked, not in agreement with nature, not in agreement with the universe. So here we are in the fifth dimension, and we have people, most of our people are stuck. So with tonight's presentation, what I'm going to do first is to try and meet people right where they are, to meet them right at that point of predicament where they are right now. And then, after meeting them, then I have to offer what I believe is a life-saving alternative for them getting out of this predicament. Otherwise, there is no sense in talking about the fifth dimension and people being in a predicament if I don't show them a way out. And of course, I've been doing this, but each time I go at it, I'm coming from a slightly different direction. So part 2 will go into a detailed instruction of how godhood is developed from the cradle. You see, we need to teach Pan-African and Afrocentric principles to our children from the time they are born. And someone reminded me in a meeting that it's important to do that even before they are born. It's important to do that when they are still in vitro, still in the womb. I agree. Many people don't realize that anything you teach a child from birth to 7 years old, I thought it was 6 years, but now they are saying 7. Anything you teach a child from birth to 6 or 7 years old will never leave that child. So for those folks who are giving these smartphones and iPhones to their children, whatever rubbish is on that phone that they're tuning into, that's who is teaching them. What are they teaching them? I guarantee you, they are teaching them poison. They are poisoning our children's minds, so that by the time they get to be teenagers, by the time they're a teenager and they want to begin to explore ideas on their own, independently, then they're handicapped, because the poison has been eating away at their brains, their mental capacities, their consciousness, filling their brains with all kinds of lies and rubbish, especially around white supremacy. That's the main thing, right? So they've got to find antidotes first and clean out the system before they can let something fresh come in and take hold. Now, I know this from experience. Every one of us that has gone through that process of changing from being Eurocentric to Afrocentric, European or Europe-centered to Africa-centered, every one of us has been through the same thing. And the older we get, the more ingrained, the more a part of us the rubbish is. So we've got to do a major cleaning, a major overhaul, before we can now take in fresh information that liberates us. So be careful how you raise your children. If you teach them Pan-African principles and Afrocentric or Africa-centered principles from the time they are born, even by the time they get to preschool, they are much better off than the rest of the children that are around them. Most Black folks don't practice this. So our children's psyches and their personalities are poisoned by these Europe-centered white supremacist teachings that they get from this patriarch system. But that's another problem that will be discussed next week. I'm going on to get into part 1. As I look at the problems that we have. And these problems are tremendous. Most of us suffer with the Stockholm Syndrome. If you're not familiar with that term, researchers came up with this term to discuss what happens to people who get kidnapped and held by someone for some length of time. It's called the Stockholm Syndrome. And what happens is the victim, the person that is captured, the victim, the captive, begins to identify with the enemy. So we, Black Africans, everywhere, we have spent hundreds of years identifying with our enslavers. We identify with our murderers. We identify with the people who murdered our ancestors. And even when we see them today attacking our children on a daily basis, we feel helpless to do anything about it. We hate ourselves, but these very people who claim to love everyone, we know that they are lying. Number one, you cannot love everyone. Two, it isn't, not only is it impossible to love everyone, no one has that kind of energy to give out. Number two, if you try loving everyone, you're going to die an early death. When you love your enemy, but you shun your own people, oh, I don't want to be around so-and-so, you know. But we have known enemies who are standing there with weapons to kill us, with a mentality that wants to get them close to us so that they can kill us. Those are the people that we run to embrace. And those are the ones who will kill you every time. So we've got some serious problems. We're like the frog. There is a question that's in the form of a joke, really, but it isn't funny. The question is, how do you boil a frog? And the answer is, you put the frog in a pot of water and you turn the heat up under the frog, and the water begins to get hot. I'm adjusting my table. Oh, this thing doesn't want to stay up. So the water begins to heat up. And as the water heats up, the frog makes adjustments. And it gets hotter, and the frog just keeps adjusting to the increase in this hot, the increase of hotness. Keeps adjusting to this hot water as it gets hotter and hotter, right? Blah, blah, blah. Until the water comes to a boil and kills him. That's what we do. We keep adjusting to the injustice. We keep adjusting to the barbarism. We keep adjusting to the violence. We keep adjusting to the hatred. And instead of changing ourselves, we are waiting for them to change, you know, them folks. We are waiting for them to change when it's not in their nature to change. If God has not been able to change them since the day they found themselves on the planet, they didn't come on the human scene until about 1,000 years ago. And even then, it was on the subhuman level. When they came from behind those melting glaciers that had them trapped during that long period of the Ice Age. And they came out, half of them walking on all fours, covered with hair. Some say fur, some say hair. I don't see a difference. And we have been trying to humanize them ever since. They came from behind those glaciers out into a world where we had already created civilization. Yet they convince us that they are the ones that created civilization. That's a lie. They weren't even around. While we, Africans, our ancestors, while they were creating civilization, writing, mathematics, computation, sewing clothes to wear, making pottery, starting farms, they were locked behind those glaciers. They have still not learned anything about personal hygiene. The Moors tried to teach them personal hygiene, and they failed. The Moors built all these public toilets and bathrooms throughout Southern Europe. They did it just to teach them personal hygiene. And they still have not learned up until the 19th century and almost the 20th century. In the medical profession, they still didn't understand the value as doctors. They didn't understand the value of washing their filthy hands before going up into a woman's stomach cavity while she was giving birth. And this is why so many of these women that gave birth, the child would live, but the mother died from infection. Now just imagine someone who has not washed his hands in days, and then he comes to the house on a horse. He has handled that filthy saddle. He has patted down the horse and wiped its flanks and did all kinds of things with his hands. He has used the toilet. He has wiped his nasty behind, still without washing his hands. And then he goes up inside a woman's stomach cavity with his filth, and she dies from infection. And I think it was Pasteur. It's been so long since I studied that. I think it was Louis Pasteur who was laughed out of the medical academy because he told the doctors, you need to start washing your hands. You are killing these women. They laughed him out of the medical academy. You cannot get the violence out of these people. You cannot. It is not in their nature to be any other way except the way they are. That's enough said about them. But we keep making these adjustments. The gym, the diet. Well, let me become a vegan. Let me take more exercise. Let me start going to yoga classes. Let me start a hobby. These are the adjustments that we are making so that we can endure even more abuse. And here we are in the 5th century. And it's late. If we're talking about getting ready for the 5th dimension, we're already late. Someone might ask, how are we supposed to get ready? Well, we can do so by coming to ourselves. As an African people, we need to come to ourselves. By getting back to African culture, we come to ourselves. By getting back to African spirituality, we come to ourselves. These two developments automatically will allow us to bond together and to get on code with each other. You wonder why there is no unity? There is a lack of unity because we have lost our culture. We have lost our cultural values. We have lost our cultural traditions. We have lost our worldview. When we lose our traditional African cultural ways of being and acting, behaving, thinking, speaking to each other, there is no way we can unify. You see, culture gives us identity. And no one in the world has the problem that we have. Other people can immigrate into this country, and I don't care how long they stay here, no matter how many generations they give birth to. 4 or 5 generations down the line, a person can tell you which generation Italian they are. Oh, I'm a 3rd generation Chinese. I'm a 4th generation Russian. Black folks are just lost. We have all these different identities that we want to latch on to, ignoring the fact that everyone on this earth started out as an African. If it's a human being, everyone started out as an African. All of Europe was once African. Now, I'm not just blowing smoke. Go Google it. We populated this entire earth. Now, someone might ask, well, what happened? Why don't they look African? What happened? Well, there were other beings that were not fully human. The Africans were the only fully human beings, Homo sapiens sapiens. Everyone else, and maybe I should say everything else, was just Homo sapien. They don't have the double sapien categorization. So as we left Africa and populated the entire earth, this has been proven genetically, of course. So it's common knowledge. Anyone who doesn't know it by now, I wonder where you've been. Where have you been? In outer space somewhere? Because
We're gonna get lots of comments today, like last week. That means we're doing a good job. Sorry to interrupt you.
okay. This is common knowledge now. So you must have been where? I have nowhere. I don't have a clue where you could have been and not have all this scientific knowledge about who African people are. And the people generating the knowledge are white folks. So argue with them. Of course, we're doing a lot of that research as well. Digging it out, just digging out that knowledge. Especially the items that they don't want anyone to know. Now, these big items, you can't keep it away from the public. Too much money has been spent on these studies to just hide it. So they just have to reveal it. And as they reveal it, like the National Geographic scientists, they were shocked. Wow. They were shocked to find that every human being on Earth traces back to one African woman. One. And there are people who don't believe that science and miracles can go together. They do. Let me go on. So we've got to get back to our culture. Those of us who will be able to find like-minded people to bond with. But the other folks who say, well, I'm mixed. Okay, then when times get hard, these mixed folks, they claim this mixed identity. But when times get hard, they can't seem to get it together with each other. They find themselves forced to join with the Black folks. The folks that they didn't want to be with in the first instance. Anyway, this is why we have a problem with any kind of unity. There are too many different identities out here. I understand it because everyone wants to be a part of the winning team. But the problem with that is what happens when the losing team suddenly does a turnaround and becomes the winning team. Then those who look like us but don't want to identify with us are on the outs. Then they want to come in and, well, wait, where you been? An amazing thing happened during the 60s. And see, skin tone doesn't always tell you what you need to know about a human being. During the 60s, those black nationalist organizations had their different offices and locations, and invariably, someone looking like a white person would walk in, and immediately the black folks would have their guard up and ask this white looking person, can I help you? Why are you here? And the person would say, I'm black. I've been living as a white person. And when they would do it, very often they would begin to weep, because living as a white person means they orphaned themselves. They simply cut all ties with family, ancestors, everybody. And they lived a life of fear that white people would find out. They did it because they wanted to be able to move up in life, to be able to get a job, have a house, just live like a normal, decent human being. So they made that sacrifice. And right now you will find some light-skinned brothers and sisters who could pass for white. Now, I'm not talking about that white chick that was up at Eastern Washington University. Not that. She was just a stone Karen, right? I'm talking about something else. So today you will find a very light-skinned person who is more Pan-African, who is more black nationalist than dark-skinned ones. I'm trying to think of that brother. I think his first name is Brock. Lance, do you know who I'm talking about?
What's the name again?
Brock. His first name is Brock.
I mean,
B-R-O.
Brock Peters?
Yes.
I remember him.
Powerful brother. He's still teaching.
Really?
Yes. On YouTube.
Wow. He's been around a bit.
And he's still at it.
Good.
And then look at Clarence Thomas.
His name has become the very manifestation and epitome of what, oh God, Clarence, oh God. Listen, I'll say it this way.
His name
I have more faith and belief more in Clarence Carter than I do in Clarence Thomas. At least he is who he is. The one who made the song, I've been stroking.
He is pitiful. And you wonder about him. How does he even sit on the same horse, so to speak, with that thing he's married to? Because, you know, she's straight from, all you need to do is give her cape and her hood. And I remember when he was running for the Supreme Court, and the biggest racist in the government, there he was in a photograph, and they were holding hands. And we knew immediately what that was. Because he had this white wife, he was bought and sold. Plain and simple. And when they asked him, when the press asked him for a photograph of a family member, he got a photograph of his white wife's niece. And that's the photograph that he put in the newspaper as his relative. He and his whole family.
Oh, how sweet.
I remember. You see, it's good to live a long life because you see Ish come in and go out. Lord have mercy. Let me move on.
Sometimes there's constipation going on and things start to really stink.
Oh, Lord.
Not even just life. Could you imagine being online for a long time? Trust me.
We are in some troubled times. And I'm just wondering how many of us are ready to liberate our minds, to explore, to discover, and, to engage in intelligent, intellectual conversation and to embrace the truth. Wherever you find it, can you embrace the truth and accept it as knowledge? And it's up to the individual. It's not too late. It's late, but it's not too late. But you see, the flood has already hit. And the government has already sent warnings out to various cities throughout the country saying that there are these cells of Iranian people, men, who are enemies to America. And one by one, they have been gathering in little cells, little clusters in city after city, state after state. And now when America wants to make some moves against Iran, all of a sudden, they bring out this news that they have known for a long time. They were just waiting for it to happen. So the warning is out. Be careful. A cyber attack can happen at any moment. So that we will not have electricity, we will not have water. For our listening audience, know this. When the lights go off, you have no water. Now you can have so many bricks of drinking water, but how are you going to flush your toilet? Most people have not even thought about that. And under these attacks, America is going to become a very stinky place. You're going to find human feces in plastic bags and whatnot flung everywhere. If you're in an apartment building, that apartment building is going to start stinking because people are going to start getting rid of the waste through the dumpster. And then, do you think a garbage man wants to come and deal with that? A lot of them might just give up the job. Who wants to deal with that? Breathing that in, that's poisonous. All those funky spores going all through your system. But we don't think. We're busy watching the Grammys. We're watching who slaps who on the stage. We're interested in gossip. Who is sleeping with whom? Who is wearing what man is wearing a dress up in Hollywood? Yeah. When all this stuff is happening. So it is late. The flood is here. Maybe it hasn't reached your city yet, but it's just a matter of minutes. You never know when. But it's not too late. Even though the flood is already here. And since we don't have unity, now we are like the white folks. It's everybody for himself and herself. So as an antidote, I am suggesting that we come to ourselves by getting back into our culture. A lot of us talk the talk, we don't walk the walk. All right, so what are the concept and the features of African spirituality? First of all, let me say it's for those people who identify as being African. If you are not African, this doesn't apply to you. No matter who you look like, no matter who your mama is, if you don't identify as being African, it doesn't apply to you. So you can just keep moving. So I'm going down the list. First of all, African spirituality defines Creator God, hold on tight, defines Creator God as an African woman. Now, it's not saying that God is an African woman living in outer space. None of that foolishness. It's using an African woman as an analogy so that we can somehow comprehend God in accordance with our scientific and spiritual and biological reality. Even the scientists use that analogy. Think of an African woman. I'll get into it. So African spirituality, first of all, defines Creator God as an African woman who reproduces and nurtures life and every living thing. I'm not sure you're ready for this. I'm not sure that even African women in America are ready for this. African spirituality recognizes divine spirit as a reality that is beyond physical illusion. Yes, I said physical illusion. Any material things that you see, those things, these chairs, desks, pillows, lamps, stuff hanging on the wall, they are illusions. You see, it has to be a form in the spiritual realm first, before the concept can enter someone's mind, and they can then put it together and manifest. If it ain't in the spirit world first, it cannot be manifested in the material world. It's impossible. It has to happen out there first. So when someone tells you that God created everything on earth from nothing, that's impossible. There has to be something. But you see, that part of it was not according to their understanding. You think these folks are smart? They are not. They are as dumb as doorknobs. They came across our spiritual writings and they plagiarized. They plagiarized what they could. And whatever they took away, they changed. And of course, it had to change because they could not understand the concept. So they said, oh, God created from nothing. Sit down, asshole.
Bang.
The kindergartners are trying to lecture to the folks who have Ph.D s. The kindergartners who just, came to themselves kind of, sort of, maybe 45,000 years ago, trying to lecture science and spirituality and reality and all that stuff to the ones who walked this earth for 300,000 years. BC. Or BCE, because everybody ain't Christian. We have to respect them too. So they don't know. And they have drilled all this unscientific nonsense in our heads for hundreds of years. And they didn't know squat about what they were talking about. And they still don't. Let me go on. So African spirituality recognizes divine spirit as a reality that is beyond physical illusion. Out of all the cultures on earth, every one of them has a cultural worldview except Caucasians. They just don't get it. Did I say a cultural worldview? I mean a spiritual worldview. What do I mean by a spiritual worldview and belief system? It is a culture where spirit, divine spirit, is seen as reality. In fact, divine spirit is said to be the highest reality. Without divine spirit, there is nothing. Caucasian culture is the only culture with a material worldview. What does that mean? Unlike the spiritual worldview that sees divine spirit as reality and the central reality, the Caucasian culture, European and American culture, have a material worldview. They say spirit is not real. It has no part in reality. And I've shown you illustrations of that. They have religion. They don't have spirituality. They have religion, and they cannot have spirituality because of their calcified pineal gland. And they are still working mightily, trying to find something to unblock, to get all those calcium crystals out of their damn pineal gland. And they cannot. And that pineal gland is the singular, most powerful, humanizing structure in the human body. I've talked about that. If someone wants me to talk about it again, chime in. Otherwise, I'm moving on. African spirituality connects human beings with divine spirit and with life itself on a soul level. Understanding that we are all connected. Even with the plants, we are connected. Even with the insects, we are connected. Life is given to all of us at the same time. So what happens to one somehow involves others. African spirituality knows and asserts that God is an internal force that has been scientifically identified and quantified genetically. Okay, Lance, I'm ready for figure.
Yeah.
Wait.
Number one?
Hold on. Yes. Give me one. Figure one. I skipped over it, and I shouldn't have. This is the difference between religion and spirituality. Religion tells you what is true or false without showing you any kind of evidence. None. Just take it as I give it to you and don't question. You're not supposed to question God. I'm not questioning God. I'm questioning you, asshole. And very often you have these lazy-minded pastors who don't know anything, telling educated people what is true and what is false. So religion tells you what is true or false without showing any kind of evidence. How is that different from spirituality of any kind? But of course, I'm focusing on African spirituality, but just spirituality, period. Spirituality motivates you to discover the truth by validating claims with evidence. Most often, scientific evidence. Let's go back to religion. Religion asserts itself as being exclusive. It's their way or the highway. Only they can be holy. Anyone else, even if it's a fellow Christian, if they have a different denomination, no, it can't be them, just us. So we have more than 100 different denominations of Protestant churches. That's aside from being the Catholics have also split off. But religion asserts itself as being exclusive, whereby spirituality invites and includes diversity. Why? Because truth is truth, no matter where it comes from. You can have all kinds of beliefs, but remember, beliefs are not facts. Truth can come from anywhere. Spirituality invites it and it includes it. Religion emphasizes physical punishment. Wow. When you think about what happened in Europe, the Inquisition, it shows you just how brutal these people are. And they chose the Inquisition to especially kill, murder, burn to death, drown to death. They did all kinds of things to women using the flimsiest excuse. And some of these men, church men, I don't want to call them priests, but they were corrupt. And if a woman didn't give herself to him on demand, he would call her a witch. And she would be tortured to death and finally killed, probably burned to death. They hate women so much that there are records of whole towns. Women, every woman in the town was burned to death along with their children. So religion very often emphasizes physical punishment. On the other hand, spirituality emphasizes the principle of karma, the universal law of cause and effect. If you send out good, good comes back to you. If you send out evil, evil comes back to you. Until Europeans came to Africa, there were no jails, there were no prisons. They didn't need them. Even the system of slavery in Africa was so different than the system that Caucasians created. How was it different? Well, first of all, 98% of all slaves in Africa were war captives. So if you were captured in war, you would be taken back to your enemy's village, and you would have to stay there and work for about 7 years, and then you could go back to your own village. But what was life like while you were being held captive? Well, they give you a small piece of land. They help you to build a house. If it's a man, and he has a family, he could send for his family. He could send for his wife and his children, because he needs to live a normal life. He was not tied, he was not chained. And I'm saying he, but sometimes women warriors were also captured. Same thing. No one discriminated. In fact, depending on the talent and the knowledge of that person who was enslaved, they could rise up through the social ranks. Suppose that person was very knowledgeable or highly skilled in something. Then he could rise up through the social ranks within that community. Could even become chief. The only status that such a person could not acquire was that of being priest. They would draw the line there. The person didn't work any more than anyone else. The person was not bound, not tied down, could walk about, could visit, could work for other people and get wages. It didn't matter. When his or her time was up, that person, if he or she wanted to, that person could go back to the original village. That is what African slavery was about. 98% of African slaves were war captives. Well, how about the remaining 2 or 3%? Fine. They were not war captives. They were committed thieves or prostitutes. Especially the thieves. Not so much the prostitutes. But if you had any kind of bad behavior, lying and stirring up trouble, and even your own family would get rid of you. Just out making trouble for everyone. No one could have peace. You could find yourself enslaved until you learn your lesson and can then come back home, hopefully a better person. That was African slavery. If you murdered someone, there were no prisons. You would get rehabilitated. And it would take 3 to 4 generations for that to happen. First of all, a person from your village has to come and replace the person in that family of the one that you killed. That person has to be replaced by one of your relatives. The next thing is the parents of the person you kill. You have to deal with them for the rest of your life. How do you deal with them? Okay. Every week, you have to go to them and sit down with them. You have to bring them a gift. Every week, you've got to bring something. And when you come, they have to feed you. They have to. That's the tradition. So at first, both sides are at odds, right? But as time goes on, you keep bringing a gift and they keep feeding you. After a while, you become a member of the family. Now, the other person that was brought as a replacement, that person can never marry someone from his or her village. That person has to marry a person in the new village. And when they have a child, that child can never marry someone from that other village. It takes 2 more generations for that to stop being imposed. And by then, they consider everything settled. Look at the humanity. And this is why Africa never had prisons and jails. They didn't need them. Okay, let me go to the last point. Religion imposes dogma and dogmatic rules. On the spiritual side, African spirituality encourages self-discovery, not dogmatic rules. Do this, do that, do the other. Why? Well, don't ask why. You're questioning God, that kind of nonsense. Okay. Thank you, Lance. Now, going back to where I was before.
Well, number 2?
Not yet. Let me be sure. Not yet. African spirituality connects human beings with divine spirit and with life itself on a soul level. It knows and it asserts that God, Creator God, is an internal force that has been scientifically identified and quantified genetically, identified and quantified biologically, identified and quantified psychologically, identified and quantified behaviorally. I'm not sure a lot of us are ready for this. So allow me to help you get there. Figure 2, please, Lance. Yes. This is the arterial system. On the left, this is the arterial system that is found on the underside of the brain. And it looks like what? An ankh. So when we start saying that God is inside us, it's not some spookified, nebulous kind of idea that we're just throwing out there for the sake of throwing it out there to sound good. So here are the structures on the underside of the brain. Figure 3. Thank you. Look at this drawing, this artwork of the tree of life. And look at these different placentas. These are 4 different placentas coming out of 4 different women. And there we see the symbol of the tree of life. Figure 4. Here we are again, built right into the human body. On the left, you see that arterial system that looks like an ankh. In the middle, you see how the arterial system is placed structurally and can be seen on the underside of the human brain. And it is representative of this very lovely rendering, artistic rendering of the ankh. The ankh, of course, represents life. The bulb on top represents the female uterus. The stem represents the male's penis. They come together and they reproduce children. And the children are represented by the arms of the ankh. Next slide, please. Calling them slides. Figure 5. I don't think I showed you this illustration before, but I have talked about how when it comes to the pineal gland, our 2 forward-facing eyes are for looking at material things. The pineal gland is not in the forehead. It is back in the midbrain. But it allows us to spiritually see what is not physical. The eyes look at what is physical. The pineal gland allows us to see what is not physical. Now look at the shape of the limbic system, the pineal gland, and the thalamus. And look at the eye of God. Some are calling it the eye of Horus, but if it's the right eye, which this is, it is the right eye of God. Look at the design. You see the iris of the eye. Even the eyebrow matching up with the limbic system. This is why they call it sacred anatomy. The anatomy, the anatomical structures within the human body have already been depicted in sacred art from thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. How long has all this knowledge been passed down to us? Because it has been passed on for hundreds of thousands of years. Give me number 6, please. Again, I'm comparing religion with spirituality. The Western world during the 5th century separated spirituality from science. For hundreds of thousands of years, spirituality and science were considered two sides to the same coin. Our people never believed in a spirituality that was against science. That cannot or should not happen. But with Western religion, they were separated when they should be held in balance. So when you have balance between spirituality and science, then you have a culture and you have a society that will develop civilization for the greater good. Because morality comes along with spirituality. And that's what we mean by creating something, developing something for the greater good of humanity. So they should be balanced, spirituality and science. Next figure, please. Figure 7. Here we have spirituality without science. What happens? Then you have a group of people, a whole society, that will pray constantly. But they can't manifest anything. Spirituality without science. Just pray. Just meditate. Nothing comes out of it. It's off balance. Next figure, please. What happens if you have science without spirituality? Then you have a society of people that creates technology of death and destruction. Now, when it was spirituality without science, that's us praying our lives away, and nothing is getting done. Not a damn thing is moving. Here you have science without spirituality. And what do? They create the technology of death and destruction. Even if it is food, they make food into weapons. What is wrong with these people? They don't believe in spirit, and they don't have spirit. And this is why, without any conscience pangs, they can kill thousands of people at one time and feel good about it. Look at what's going on right now. Science without spirituality. What happened to the Japanese? The president said, we have already dropped the atom bomb on Japan, the major city, Tokyo. He then turned around and said, well, we have 2 bombs. Let's drop the second one And they dropped that second bomb on innocent civilians in Nagasaki. And yet they want to preach to the world about human rights. What? Go sit down. Thank you, Lance. There are so many universal laws and cosmic principles, and the more I study them, the more I find them. So it isn't just the main 12 universal laws. Then you've got cosmic principles. And I'm coming up with more laws. I never heard of the primal law of expression. I never heard of it, but it is there. What is this law? What does it do? This law of expression makes everything in the universe possible. How does it make it possible? Because it governs what they call the astro-mental region of the universe. Now, hold on. We're talking about the spiritual aspect of the universe, not the planets and stars and those are the physical structures, right? This is talking about the astro-mental region of the universe. So the universe has a mind. Actually, that's not so earth-shaking to learn, because African spirituality says that God, in all her she-ness and his he-ness, I'm making up new words as we go along, new concepts.
I'm scared of that rhyme if you keep going.
God is all mind. And that is how human beings are in the likeness of God, not the image of God. When you speak of an image of God, you're talking about the physical. God is not physical. Not in the heavenly realm. Now, when it comes to the earthly plane, God is very physical. When you look in the mirror, you are looking at God, whether you know it or not. We are in God's likeness with all the properties and capabilities of Almighty Creator God. And this is why God, in her she-ness and in his he-ness, put these physical structures inside our bodies. And there are more. There are more of them. I just didn't go into them. But those structures are put inside our bodies to remind us of who we are. And if someone questions it, then you can say, hey, I've got proof. Look at this. Look at that. Look at something else, right? I've got proof. God is in me. So every time I look in the mirror, doggone it, I'm looking at God. And that's the way every one of us should have that kind of mindset. Nothing is changing for us because we haven't wakened up. I don't want to lose my place here. So this primal law of expression makes everything possible. And I'm thinking about that passage in the Bible where it says God spoke. Woo! God spoke things into existence. And we have that power. If we can get beyond the damn vaping and smoking and drinking and doping and twerking and all that bullshit that we are involved in. The astral-mental region of the universe. Woo! That's why I love to study. Because knowledge is power. All material things pre-exist in the spiritual realm first. So all we have to do is call it forth. Call it forth. Speak it into existence. The psychic aspects of life in animals and human beings also pre-exist in the spiritual realm. And we call them forth from the heavenly realm, from the unseen into the seen. I love it. In the evolutionary process, why is it every time I start speaking, my nose starts itching? In the evolutionary process, the superior aspects of humanity are invented, listen, the superior aspects are invented and super added to that which is inferior. What are we talking about? Let's go back to the reptile brain, which is an inferior brain. And if that is the brain that controls you, you are an inferior being, acting out inferior behavior, which if you don't change, your ass will become extinct because it's against the universal laws. Thank you, Spirit. The cosmic process produced the African superior mind, and the cosmic process produced the African superior personality with superior mental faculties, superior emotions, superior ideals made possible, first of all, because it was already out in the cosmic realm, and it was called forth to sit on top of the inferior reptile brain. So now we're going from the reptile brain to the limbic system and then to the neocortex. And it was when the neocortex locked in That is when consciousness woke up in human beings. And in this case, we are talking about African people. We are the only ones. Anyone who wants to argue with me can, but first you've got to take into account the inferior reptilian behavior and psychological outlook of these people called Caucasians. I don't need to waste my time lying on them. They are worth it. I'm just drawing comparisons that can't be denied. And it was our superior consciousness that got us into trouble, because we were always trying to humanize these people, and they can't be humanized. And if they can't be humanized, they certainly cannot be civilized. It is not normal for a human being to have the bloodlust that they have. It makes them feel good. That's demonic behavior by human standards, by African standards. That's demonic. And we see it going on all around us, but we are afraid to call it what it is: demonic. Because of cosmic power, and that cosmic power of creation. African human beings are creators in our own right. We create, we invent, we reproduce, and yet we have allowed someone who is controlled, people who are controlled by the reptilian brain, to tell us that they are the real human beings. But now the universe has stepped in, and Mama Universe has said, oh, hell no, you ain't. And since you have been behaving in a demonic manner that does not befit human beings, I have to take your asses off the earth. So that now, the very ones that are perpetrating all this death and mayhem, their own scientists have given them 1 1/2 generations on earth, not to straighten up. It's way beyond that. They have never repented. And even if they were to repent now, the universe has decided it's too late, sucker. You only want to repent now because it is too late, and it's payback time, and you want to lift God's wrath off your behind. So even if you were to repent, the universe would not accept it because they wouldn't mean it. It's just a trick. But you can't trick the universe. So the cosmic components, the cosmic powers within African human beings were not merely gifts bestowed upon them, us, by some imaginary God. No. The sacred anatomy, all these things, right? Let me get the camera right. All these things, sacred anatomy. The sacred anatomy is evidence that godhood is an inherent part of African women and men. And this is how we, African folks, Black African people, we are gods on earth. Yes, physically, scientifically proven that we are gods on earth, but only if we live the divine life. Because only then do we have the pineal gland development. Only then do we develop the moral fortitude to live a life that uplifts others. A life that increases the individual's spiritual vibrations. The more we can live for the greater good, the more our vibrations increase. The more we study, the more we learn about the universe, the cosmos, the galaxies, and relate them back to ourselves, as above, so below. That's how we come to ourselves, and the ancestors begin to draw around us. As our vibrations increase, then the ancestors on a daily basis, not just the ancestors, but divine spirit, they can communicate with us on an ongoing daily basis. It enriches our lives. We are developing our godhood so that when we speak, we can call stuff from the universe and manifest it here on the earthly plane. This is what we have not been doing. Messing around with white folks and their religious foolishness. I don't care which one you're in. It doesn't belong to us. It's not our belief system. It doesn't even make damn sense. So we remain enslaved. Kanye West was probably right when he said, it sounds like a personal choice. In many cases with us, it is a personal choice for us to remain enslaved. Many of us, have made slavery our comfort zone. So I hope you're still with me. Are you still with me out there? Because we're talking about African spirituality. African spirituality that provides evidence that Almighty Mother, Father, God is within us. African spirituality that makes us walking, talking, praying, prophesying, praising and shouting, talking in tongues, laying on of hands and healing and manifesting God's right here on the earthly plane. That's who we are. If we have increased our vibrations, that's a big if. It's African spirituality that recognizes, upholds, and utilizes the divine universal laws of nature and the universe. It's African spirituality that presents the holistic view of life, just the holistic view of life itself, knowing that we are all connected, that all living things are one because of the one God, the one life force that was given, the one all in all. African spirituality allows the discovery of truth. It promotes self-discovery so that every time you look in the mirror, you should be able to say, "Hey, God, I see you. Looking good." That's what all of us should be able to do every time we look in the mirror. African spirituality encourages intellectual growth and development so that we can be in the likeness of Father God. It expects spiritual evolution so that we can become powerful gods on earth in the likeness of Mother God. It allows us to proclaim to the world that just as Mother, Father, God in the heavenly realm is real, so is Mother, Father, God manifested as a reality. Where? In me, in you, here below on the earthly plane. And the factuality and the reality in me and you, here below on this earthly plane. The factuality and the reality of African spiritual godhood is backed up with physical evidence. So that when we have this knowledge, then we can stand and prove it anatomically. We can prove it genetically. We can prove it chemically. We can prove it biologically. We can prove it hormonally. And we can prove it psychologically. And therefore, when we talk about this question, is there a balm in Gilead? Hell yes. The balm in Gilead is me. The balm in Gilead is you. We Black Africans are created as the balm. BALM. The balm, the salve, the healing potion in Gilead. The healing salve sent to heal the brutal, sin-sick, and corrupted political systems that have developed on this earth. And we have to start by healing ourselves first, and then healing each other. So yes, if you ask me, is there such a thing as African godhood? The answer is not only yes, hell yes. Certainly yes. In fact, in African spirituality, it is an expectation. You've been bestowed with these godlike mystical powers. In the Yoruba language, it's called Ashe, the power. The mystical power to make things happen. The godlike mystical power of the spoken word. You know, the spoken word can change people's hearts. Most people. We have the ability to speak things into existence. The power to draw the immaterial things that are out in the cosmos, to draw these immaterial forms from the spiritual ozone into a spiritual, material reality. I found a scripture, Psalm 82, verse 6. And it reads, I have said ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. As above, so below. So when are our people going to step into their godly inheritance? That's what I want to know. When? As women, we've been waiting for the men. Wow. You know, our protectors and providers. Don't you say that you're supposed to lead the way? But you see, when there was matriarchy and when there was a matrifocal perspective, ish got done. And you didn't see children starving all over the world. Men don't care. And men are easily corrupted. And that's a sentiment that has been handed down for thousands and thousands of years. That humanity is better off with female leadership. You know it. But since this patriarchal thing came into vogue, African men want to jump on that bandwagon because it gives you more power. It's more to your self-interest. But look around. Where are the Black families? Where are the Black fathers taking care of their children? Why are there men roaming around throughout society, just dropping babies, but not taking care of them? Women give birth to all society. And that is why women have a different governance style than men. Women are not as easily corrupted. History has proven it. I'm looking very keenly at Paul Kagame in Rwanda. More than 50% of his cabinet is comprised of women. So they have gone back to the matrifocal form and outlook of running a government. And look at how his devastated country has turned around very quickly. And I am told by several people that when you walk down the streets of that country, you cannot find one piece of paper on the ground. That alone is a sign of a woman's presence and a woman's leadership. Men are too easily corrupted. You don't give birth to life, therefore it has less meaning for you. So if you are in a leadership position, you are forcing yourself like a square peg to fit into a round hole. I am not saying that it should be all women in leadership, no. But if there is a matrifocal mindset, you have a whole different kind of government. No child goes hungry. And if you commit a crime, you're going to pay. There is no impunity. Let me move on. So Psalm 82, verse 6 reads, I have said ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. And in my mind, I can almost hear God continuing to speak, saying, and in case, just in case you have any doubt that you are God's, I have placed my sacred symbols inside your bodies as a reminder. If you will only see, if you will only think, if you will only analyze, if you will only remember who you are. The universe expects every one of us to strive toward this spiritual status during a lifetime. Attainment of warriorhood. That's the first spiritual development, just prior to reaching earthly godhood. Now, I'm not talking about fighting and having violence just to be fighting and doing violence. It's the protective aspect of warriorhood. And I don't understand why men today can't understand warriorhood. That is a tradition among African women since time immemorial. Why should that surprise you? Oh, she's too strong. She's trying to be a man. No, she isn't. What do you mean too strong? An African woman is just who she is. the one that God ordained to reproduce humanity, to give humanity everything that it needed in terms of nurturing afterwards. And when she needed help, she created that Y chromosome. Every boy baby is a girl baby first. In one of my videos, I broke it all down. So everything that is on a man physically came from a woman. So I don't know why you're just bluffing and being a blowhard and a bully, you know, flexing muscles and whatnot. Talking about you're superior to a woman. How can you be superior to a woman? Doing what? What thing of great importance to human life are you superior at? Yes. Protection, we give you that. That's why we created you. But when it comes to taking care of the people, you don't know how. In any situation, a woman can do more positive good in 15 minutes without even thinking about it, just instinctively. A woman can do more positive good in 15 minutes than a man can in a week of thinking about it and trying to figure it out. A woman doesn't have to think about it. She just rolls right into action. Why would you want a weak woman? If God had created African women weak, how the hell would they have been able to trek across the entire planet? There were no automobiles, bicycles, and what? Why do you think she was able to be helping to lead the way in creating civilization? It was African women who laid the foundation for all civilization by doing what? Creating gardens, agriculture. Agriculture. And in Africa, it is still women who control the markets. But you don't want to give women their due? What's wrong with you? We've got to come to ourselves. We've got to lean on each other. Stop talking about strong women. African women are not these strong women. They're just women. And when you compare other women to an African woman, then you can talk about them being these weak women. But African women are just women, just the way God made us. And we are able and ready to step into any situation, no matter what it is. Whether it is typically female as a role or typically male. She can do it because she is built that way. So let's stop talking nonsense. Let's come together. Get back to our original culture. so that everyone knows his and her place in leadership. Where am I? Okay, so this attainment of warriorhood is a spiritual development. Not fighting for the sake of fighting, not fighting because you enjoy fighting. It is the protective aspect of warriorhood that is spiritual, because it means that you are ready to volunteer your life for the good and for the safety of your people. When it comes to females, look at Yasantewa, a royal woman. The men were ready to just give up to the British. And she said it won't happen. So if you men, she said, I'm paraphrasing, if you are too tired to fight any further, sit down. You can sit down. But as for me, she said, I'm going to gather the women and the children, and we will fight the British until the last drop of our blood runs in the soil. And the women went into battle. It made the men so ashamed that they had to muster their courage and continue fighting. And I'm sure part of that is based on the fact that had they not done it, they never would have gotten nookie from their wives again in life.
Woo!
It wouldn't have happened. Because when the respect goes, then the love suffers. A woman cannot love a man whom she does not respect. So you sit down talking about you're tired of fighting the British, and you let me go out and fight the British men by myself? Oh, hell no. From that day on, there's a lock on it, cha-ching. Nothing for you, Bubba. Go find a prostitute. And that's life. And that's real. Does everyone have spirituality? Yes, everyone does. But not in the same amount. Not at the same level. You see, we Africans have fully operational pineal glands. And the pineal gland is the gateway for access to divine spirit. Africans also have super rich neuromelanin. Now, that's the melanin that runs throughout the entire system. It produces skin tone and things like that. But it's the neuromelanin. Neuro means nervous system. It's connected with the nervous system. So when a fetus is developing in the mother, if there isn't enough neuromelanin in the brain, going through the system, bathing all the cells and the organs, but mostly the brain. That fetus will automatically abort. Now we have albinos. In Africa, they say albinos because I is pronounced E. We have albinos, right? So they have a deficit of neuromelanin, but they have enough to sustain life. And they live normal lives. They have real problems with their eyes because they don't have the neuromelanin that protects their eyes. So they have light-colored eyes, right? The eyes are sometimes blue, sometimes hazel, sometimes a very light brown, a clear brown. But they have enough to sustain life. And they get married. They always marry a dark-skinned person so that there will be less probability for the offspring to also suffer from albinism. Someone who has albinism never wants to get married to another person with albinism because most likely that child will not even survive pregnancy. So they always find someone to marry who is fully melanated. Okay? Caucasians already have a serious deficit of neuromelanin, but it's enough to sustain life. Now, when those who already have a serious deficit have children, if that child is albino, it's an ugly thing to behold. You never see them in society because they cannot function in society, and their appearance is not good. They're almost transparent. Their eyes are pink. So if you see them in public and they don't have pink eyes, you know, like the little white mice, right? Then they will have contact lenses. But I think most of them are institutionalized because they cannot function. All because of this deficit of neuromelanin. Caucasians also have, I already mentioned the calcified pineal glands. Okay. I'm going to start winding down with this last conclusion, with this last question. Why do you think African people were created in the first place? Now, some folks who say they don't believe in God, and they say, well, it just happened. It was something that just happened, right? But that's not the traditional African way of thinking. Many Africans were created as avatars. Now, this is coming from me because I have sat back and observed some things. You know, there is so much information about the ancient past. there's so much available that I have sat back to try and analyze the situation. Let me tell you what I'm dealing with. In Ethiopia, they found a factory that was producing tools 1,000,000 years old. Now, it wasn't like a modern factory with electricity or anything like that, but it was a factory where they were producing tools. And this was 1,000,000 years ago. How do we know that it was 1,000,000 years ago? Well, they did some carbon dating and that kind of thing, right? So the scientists have informed us that people were doing this 1,000,000 years ago. Okay. I'm also looking at what they call OOP art. The OOP refers to out of place art. You can Google it. Out of place art. What is it? Archaeologists are always digging in the ground to find whatever they can find, because usually they have some theory or other. They see something, they've observed something, and they have put together a theory that is based on this observable evidence. So always remember that a theory isn't something that's just made up, not in the scientific world, right? For something to be a theory, it means that someone has studied something. It is always based on something that we can observe. And after observing this thing, we begin to ask the research questions. How? How does this take place? Why? Why does this thing behave in a certain way, for example, right? So archaeologists are always digging in the ground, seeing what they can discover based upon a theory. It's always based upon something, because you have to get grants to go and dig and, be paid a salary, and you have to pay workers. So it's got to be more than just, I think, or I believe. No. It has to be based on, getting the grant has to be based on, I see something here, and I believe this explains what that something is, or how that thing works, or why it is the way it is. Okay. So I'm going to discover whether or not this is true. And it has to be more than that. The person who is asking for the grant has to be convincing that this is something that is good for humanity. That at the end of the day, they will be able to present new knowledge to the world. Okay. So I think I lost my place. Let me catch up with myself. Why were African human beings created? Okay. So I'm sitting and I'm also observing, besides this million-year-old tool factory, besides this out-of-place art that is so old, they can't even date it. And it isn't just art. A lot of it is devices that work, like battery packs. Devices that do something that make life that make life easier. So it isn't just artwork. And it's so old that they can't even date it. And they have several dating methods. And they send it through all three methods. And they still say that it is so old. It's almost impossible to be dated. So I'm looking at that. Another thing that I am looking at is the number of times that life on Earth has been wiped out. Some talk about the flood, but there have been several earthquakes. The one that I'm most impressed by is the one that took place in 74,000 BC, called the Toba, T-O-B-A, the Toba eruptions, right? And there was another one much earlier than that. And again, humanity was wiped out. Now, that's not talking about the flood. I'm looking at all of this stuff, and as a researcher, I got confused. You see, for decades now, I have been lecturing on our history and our accomplishments on this earth since 300,000 BC. What happened before? How many times has the universe, I began to ask myself, right? How many times has the universe cleansed itself of humanity? How many times? We have a million-year-old factory. It's more than a million when you count everything that is AD or BP, before, well, the present era, PE. How many times has humanity been removed almost completely from the earth and replenished again in population by African people? Now, that's something to think about. So in this case, who are African people? And this concept that Africans never die, they just continue. They go and then they come back to live again, to fight again, and things keep rolling. For what reason? There has to be a reason. And my feeble brain right now is not up to figuring out why. And I'm not in a place or a situation where I can do the research. Not right now. Maybe in a few months. Maybe when I have the pleasure and the blessing of sitting down in the presence at the feet of the mystics in Africa. Those who have carried down the knowledge for hundreds of thousands of years. For example, the Dogon people, and I know I'm kind of rambling right now. I'm just throwing this stuff out. I'm throwing it out because there is someone out there who is also pondering the same thing. Or if they are not actually pondering this same thing right now, it strikes a spark in something that they are pondering, but they hadn't quite formulated the question yet, if that makes any sense. I'm just throwing the ideas out there because there is far more to this life than our feeble brains right now can understand. And maybe the knowledge will start coming to us because now we are in the fifth dimension and we'll be carrying on this conversation and just exploring. The Dogon people, for example, say that we came from Mars. A French scientist, Marcel Gréau, studied with the Dogon people for 25 years. He was a white boy, so, they had to initiate him to even get him started because he was like a kindergarten student. And they had to pray over him first to see if his heart was right. Because if your heart is not right, they won't teach you squat. So Divine Spirit said, teach him, but in small doses at a time. And frankly, they can't even handle a lot of the information that we can handle. It's just like spirit. Every now and then spirit will touch them and they damn near go crazy. They can't handle it. It will burn out their nervous system to actually get a download of divine spirit at one time, the way African people can handle it all the time. Think about those people in the Holiness Church. 7 days a week, they are at it, pulling down the power. And if they were to add scientific study to all of that, then the genius would be popping out everywhere. But that's spirituality without science. Okay. So to return, I began to wonder. That's all I can do at this time. I began to wonder, are African people some kind of avatar? You know, like in the video games. The avatar can never be killed. The avatar represents some divine principles. And it comes as, not as a savior, so to speak, but hero, shiro, but with divinity attached to it. Are we these avatars? Are we these returned or reincarnated human beings who are spiritual embodiments or personifications of divine principles? The entire world recognizes that we are the most spiritual human beings on earth. Is it Africans' divine mission to continue the development of civilization and to uplift humanity such that life on earth can be as it is in the heavenly realm? To me, these are legitimate questions because we see evidence. What are we to do with this evidence? How do we fit it and fix it so that we can understand? We have evidence that our people return. Some know that they are returnees. Others have signs or birthmarks or something as evidence that this person is a returnee. So these returnees come in several different shapes and situations. Humanity, I believe, I should say, I know. This is not just a belief. Humanity was created with the power of propagation and perpetuity. Propagation meaning that you reproduce. We've done that. We populated the entire planet. Perpetuity, it means you never die. That is, Africans were given the power and the mission to populate the earth. That's the propagation. And we were also given the power of, watch out, the power of eternal life. This is where the concept began with us. Having the evidence that we transition out and then we are reborn back in continuation. The power to live forever. We know scientifically that once energy is created, it can never die. It never dissipates. It remains a reality. So that's like the human soul. Eternal life, the power to live forever. Not in one lifetime, like them folks are trying to live for over 100 years. Now that reminds me of a video I saw the other day. There are whole towns in Africa where people are way over 100 years old, and they still have their faculties. One was 150, another was 165, and they were interviewed. They talked with good sense. They're not drooling and pissing and pooping on themselves. But I got off the subject. Eternal life. Right? Eternal life means you transition out and you come back. Now at 165, I don't know how productive such a person can be. I wouldn't want to be 165 because for the most part, I've got to depend on someone else for a lot of things, right? I don't like that. But this concept of eternal life was created by African people because of the evidence. Therefore, African people will never become extinct. You know, just not be able to propagate, not be able to reproduce. We are the only ones on earth right now, right here, right now, who are not going extinct. And it is driving the rest of the world nuts. That old saying about how the last shall be first and the first shall be last, that's us. We are the first who was set back through wickedness. We have been made last. And then
seems like she dropped off. Let's give it a few moments before she comes on. Don't know what happened. Her phone is still, her computer's still connected, but for some reason, we give her a call. I don't think she realizes it either. Hold tight, everybody. Hold tight. Let's fix this issue. Yeah, you fell off for like about 60 seconds, but you're good. I don't know what happened. Yeah, that's good. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I
Yeah,
can
you're
hear
good
you.
now. Yeah, you fell off for about maybe 60 seconds.
Yes. I guess it got so hot up in here.
Now you're pissing the government off.
No, the plug came out. The plug just fell out. Wow. Okay, what was I saying? Okay, so we are looking at human life. Oh, I was saying that whole term or reference to eternal life, we created it based on evidence. Okay. So Africans were given the power of eternal life, the power to live forever. Not at one time, but to go and come back. Therefore, we will never become extinct. We are the only people on God's green earth right now. The only ones that are not becoming extinct. And it's the white scientists who are telling us, telling the world, that by 2050, 2050, it will be very hard to find a person who is not African. By 2050, that's not a long time. 1 out of every 4 people on earth will be African. 1 out of every 4. So if people start intermarrying, you know what's going to happen. People will begin returning to their African origins. This is happening right now. The universe is getting rid of folks. Everyone except us. We are the only population on Earth that is expanding. Everyone else is dying out. And with all these wars, they're taking each other out. And I really don't want to see us get involved in any of it, because it doesn't involve us. But let me start wrapping up. So we will never become extinct. Our souls are eternal. So when we transition and return again and again, we call it continuation. Lance, can I see figure 10? I haven't done 9 yet. Let me see 9 first. I don't know how I skipped it. Yes. So this is an illustration that I created. It's a funny looking thing. But what I'm trying to do with this particular illustration is to sort of show you the concept, or what I was trying to do was conceptualize in such a way that other people could understand. So up at the top of this figure, you see the title, African Cosmology. And it is cosmology because it depicts the nature of the universe, the nature and some of the makeup of the universe as an African perspective, right? So at the very top, I have the living spiritual universe. And it is comprised of the infinite mind or intellect and the infinite spirit and infinite energy. So that's what sort of makes up life in the universe. Mind, spirit, and energy in the living spiritual universe. Below that, in this oval, you have the feminine universe. Why feminine? You think I did that just because I'm a female? No. The African mystics, the high priests, and the modern scientists all agree that the universe is feminine and it is black. The outer universe is completely black. The stars are so far apart, they have nothing to, they shine, but in the atmosphere out there, there is nothing to reflect it. So the universe is just totally black. And it's the scientists who agree with the African traditionalists. They say, yes, the universe is feminine. What evidence do you have of that? Well, it gives birth. It's constantly giving birth, just like a black woman. It gives birth to planets, new stars, new galaxies all the time. And it was in Einstein's lifetime that he taught something about the theory of curved space. Curved space. Number one, the scientists tell us we will never reach the end of the universe. Why not? Because the universe is constantly giving birth to more stars and planets and galaxies. So it just keeps expanding. And you can't get to the end of it. Now, the other thing dealing with Einstein and his theory of curved space, his research proved that if you get in a spaceship and you go out so far to the outer edge of the Milky Way galaxy, you cannot go any farther. Your ship will begin to turn. And upon that evidence, he came up with the theory of curved space. Did you say something, Lance?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. So the universe is black. The universe is always giving birth. So I take that from above, as above, so below. Now, someone might ask, well, don't you need the feminine and the masculine? Yes, we do. And frankly, it's beyond my knowledge and beyond anyone else's knowledge that I have asked so far as to how the masculine aspect of the universe comes in when we speak of a feminine universe. I don't know. I'm still trying to find out. But everyone is in agreement that the universe is feminine because it gives birth. And they equate it or compare it with Black women, African women, who are also Black and feminine and giving birth. As above, so below. Now, I don't know if it's because the feminine existed long before the male ever came into existence. I don't know. I haven't done the research. I'm going with the evidence that I can find right now. There is one divine, infinite cosmic force. And right now I am assuming that it's with that infinite cosmic force that the male principle is joined with the feminine or the female principle. Right now, I don't know. Below, you find the divine, finite, earthly God. Mother, female, feminine energy, as well as father, male, masculine energy. Dropping down to the earthly plane. You have immortals, especially the ones we call the seven highest African powers. In most of the cultures, they talk about seven of the highest powers among these immortal beings, the angels, right? The Orishas, the Loas, the Devas, and whatever. And then I'm trying to read it. My eyes are so bad now. Humans attain immortality by practicing active ethics and contributing good works for posterity, which results in spiritual ascension to the level of human godhood on earth. So you have the universe. Then you have the immortals. And then you have humanity. Drop down again. And as you come down, the diagram or the illustration, you can see that the energy and the consciousness become less and less. So here you have living human beings. In the African perspective, When you speak of humanity, you're speaking or you're addressing the living, the dead with the ancestors, as well as the unborn. And there is a common saying that we are the ancestors, and we are, because we are returnees. So we are the returned ancestors who are now living beings, and we call upon those ancestors that are still in the spirit world, as well as the unborn. So we are all three affecting each other. Underneath human beings, you have plants, then animals, and then minerals. I'm still working on this concept. Can I see the next figure? Please, Lance. Okay. This is the African concept of spiritual evolution. So number one starts in the spiritual realm, which represents air or heaven. And what is in the circle, number one, the reincarnating soul chooses or is assigned a new divine destiny. That's in position number one. Follow the arrow vertically going down to earth, which is south, and it represents rebirth. In that new number two position, the soul receives its divine destiny in the head. And this is the Yoruba concept. But actually, it's the African concept because it's pretty much the same everywhere. So once that happens, when someone is reborn, follow the arrow that hooks around to the right to the number three position, which is east, representing fire and life. In the number three position, the soul begins its life's journey. So if we now follow the arrow points horizontally, right, from east to west, that represents the destiny path of the human soul. And along that path, we encounter the stuff, the joys, the sorrows, the blessings, the happiness, all of that along life's journey. So we are headed toward number four. The number four position is west, representing water and death. At this point, the soul ends its life journey and separates from the body. When that happens, follow the arrows again to position number five, which is north again. So we start out from the spirit realm in the north, the heavenly realm, and come south, and then hook around to the east to start the destiny path. And from there, once we make transition, we return back into the universe. So in that number 5 position, the soul returns to heaven and awaits the next incarnation. Now notice the lines. From north to south, and you hook around to the right and go from east to west, and you hook around and go to the north and come back again to the south, hook around to the east, go to the west, go back into the heavenly realm and drop down again. So this is the continuation process of the human soul of African people. I don't know what happens to those other people. I don't care. But this is African cosmology. Now, if you just focus on the lines, imagine taking your 2 fingers, your thumb and your index finger. Go to the center of that diagram, just the lines, and twist it to the left. Just imagine twisting it to the left. And what do you have? You have the infinity symbol. Can I have that one, figure 11? African people created the infinity symbol. It represents unlimited and unlimited extent of time, of space, and quantity. Instead of reincarnation, we call it continuation and ascension of human souls. Ascension because by the time we come back around, if we had learned our major lessons during the last lifetime, I'm going to let the answering machine catch it. Then when we come back, we are at a higher level than we were before. So it's like graduating out of one class and coming back to school at a higher grade. And this is the infinity symbol. There is no end. It just keeps looping around. Keeps looping around. Okay, the final figure, please. Number 12. Lance, are you there? Oh, it looks like he stepped away.
No, I'm here. You want the next one?
Yes.
Okay.
The last one. Whew. Okay, this spiral represents the process of reincarnation from an African perspective. So once you pass your lessons in one life, you transition out and you come back. You never come back at the same level or in the same grade. It's always a higher grade and a higher one. And that is the process of reincarnation or continuation. Thank you, Lance. We can take that down. I'm going into my conclusion. So this ends part 1. Part 2 is going to be a detailed instruction of how Godhood is properly developed from the cradle. It's best done that way. We need to start teaching Pan-African and Afrocentric principles to our children from birth, or even when they are still in the womb, because they can hear us. But at least start teaching them from the cradle. Because from birth to the age of 7, if you teach these principles to your children before they get to school, before the enemy has a chance to poison their minds, to mess up their personalities, those teachings will never leave that child. You see, from the age of 0 to 7, when you teach anything to a child, the child doesn't know anything. So the child just accepts whatever you are teaching it. They take it as the gospel. They don't have any ideas with which to push back or to ask, well, what about? They just accept it. And it stays there as a foundation to their spirituality, their consciousness, their intellect, their memory, everything. By the age of 7, no one will be able to twist that child's mind. Now, I've been teaching this for decades. And the people who hear me teach over and over again never do it. And then we wonder, what happens to our children? What happens to them once they become teenagers and older? From 0 to 7 years old, if you teach them so many decades later, when they transition, they will take that with them when they transition. And they will come back with those same principles, but understood by then at a higher level. Well, beloved, I've come to an end of this lecture. I hope I didn't bore anyone.
No, the lies that they put out there, the propaganda they put out there, that bores us to death because it doesn't lead us to life. What you're telling us is leading us to life, true life. It's a shame that these schools of indoctrination are doing a dirty job, clogging our minds up with the bad food and the bad stuff on social media, giving the kids smartphones, making them dumb. So you're here to clear up the way. This can't be boring. Cleanliness is not boring. Cleaning up is not boring. Vibrating high is not boring. Right? If you're bored at this, then you're sold out and you're dead walking around. Dead man or dead woman walking. So in actuality, you're the bringer of life.
And again, well, I don't know about my illustrations. These illustrations. Plagiarism, right? It's a plague nowadays. These intellectually lazy people. You have a group of people who just sit around waiting for someone else to do something, and they will see it and they will just take it and start using it as if it's their original material. Yeah. So it's big business nowadays. Plagiarism and stealing, copyrighted materials. And yeah, it is. So, beloved, I am at the end of this particular video.
Yes, thank you.
I hope you guys learned something.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, I'm learning a lot. Every day I'm doing some kind of research. And as I do the research, it's just my mind just keeps expanding.
Just like the universe.
Yes. And I keep wondering, this thing about our possibly being used as the avatars of the universe. So they send us out time after time to do something. I'll use this particular time that we are living in, right? I believe if we use that avatar scenario, let's just suppose God put us here on earth this time, along with these other beings, right? And the purpose for our being placed here, I'm just speculating. The purpose was to humanize a group of beings that were not quite human. I'm speculating. That was our divine mission. Well, how about them? We've got our responsibility to get this job done, but how about them? Speculating again. Suppose the universe gave them an allotted period of time to become fully human. If they don't become human, they cannot become civil or civilized. You've got to be humanized first. So was that our job? Is that why our ancestors have been so patient until now? Until with this present generation of youths. Look at the young people on the continent. They are not playing. They have started a revolutionary. Almost overnight, Niger, for example, has in 1 year become the world's fastest growing economy in the world within 1 year. After being dirt poor, and when I say dirt poor, I'm referring to their people being held back by these European powers to the extent that they are scraping and struggling to have just one meal a day. And here comes the coup. Under some kind of enlightened leadership, military leadership. And in 1 year, he turns the economy around to being the #1 fastest growing economy in the world. Burkina Faso, not far behind. How about Paul Kagame's country? It isn't Uganda. It's all of a sudden it slipped from me. I'm old, y'all. Forgive me. Look at the way he turned his country around. So, are we these avatars who have lived up to our responsibility, and the other group that we came to lift up have not lived up to their responsibility? Because when they came from behind those glaciers 1,000 years ago, the first thing they should have done was to find the blackest blue, the most blue black African they could find, to bring themselves back, because they came out almost in an animalistic state. They were at a barbaric state, genetically, biologically, psychologically, physically, culturally. They desperately needed to come back. But instead of doing that, they did just the opposite. And they are still making that conscious decision not to be humanized. Again, speculating, trying to make sense out of what happens with us. Because the evidence shows that we come back again and again. So how many times have we put ourselves in danger because we were sent to uplift a certain population? That's what I'm thinking. If the chat is open, I would love for someone to chime in to see if they can make sense of some of this. And give me a minute. I want to close my curtain. So, do we have any comments?
Oh, we have a lot of comments in the chat room, but we don't have anybody who came on live with you yet. We just put the link out.
Okay, but they are in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
We
so
have a lot of chats to read when the show is over.
Okay. So they are listening.
Oh, yeah. Listening and commenting and vibing with you.
Very good. Well, I'm looking at the time. It's 6:30. I did well.
As always.
At 7 o'clock, I've got to put on a different hat. I did well. I will take off my caftan and then I'll go put on another hat, and something is going on here in the building and I
Beautiful.
have to be there. Yes. So I wear these different hats. My.
I'll share a
Oh,
comment by Giant Gain if you read it across the screen.
oh, yes. Ancestors should be pissed with the way we've conformed to their way. You know it. And that's why some of us are suffering. Some of us are getting our butts whipped by our ancestors. Can you imagine? There was this guy on the news, black man, and from the continent, talking some kind of rubbish. And of course, he has been told to speak this way. He's one of the collaborators. All right. Talking about black people should just get over whatever was done to us. And we should just look forward and tell these other people. How many millions of people have we lost? Yet you can't hear your ears. Now, I don't want to get canceled. I don't want you to get canceled. I don't want people shooting in my windows or whatnot. But all this forgiveness and forgetting. Yeah, just forgive and forget. There is an African proverb that says the axe, the chopping axe, the axe forgets what it has done, but the tree always remembers. Just forget it, put it in the past, talking about King Charles, and he's trying to do this, that, and the other. Oh, Lord. Of course, I picked up the remote and went click. I got rid of him. He's a slave and a puppet. But yeah, I did well. So now I'm going to leave you guys. Bye, beloved. It has been wonderful being with
Thank
you
you so much.
again. I have to change clothes again and go do something different. This is my third change today. And
Wow. Well, you know what? That's a whole lot more than some people I've known.
underneath this caftan, I've got on jeans.
That's your
I've
third
got on
change today. I
jeans
know
and
people
tennis
change
shoes.
time every 3 days.
So now I've got to go get a little bit dressed up and go downstairs for this meeting and everything. But thanks for everything, Lance. God bless you for giving me the opportunity to come and share and speak to our people. Yeah.
But we have to help each other. You've been doing this for so long, and I mean, it's easy to do a YouTube channel, but it's not easy to do certain aspects consistently. So it doesn't make me any super special person, but combined, if I can do what I do to help bring you to people with what you do, that's how you're supposed to do it. So I have to honor you for putting in the hard work, year after year, decade after decade. And that's what we're here for. Instead of us warring against each other and talking behind each other's back, we're here to support each other, because every moment that we have on this level is very precious. We only realize that when we transition, which that is part of the precious life cycle. But for our own human selfish reasons, we say, oh, I'm going to miss them. But we're never going to have to miss them. They're there. They're just in a different form and a different plane that we're going to ascend to if we do what's right by ourselves. So, that's what it's all about. And like I said, my way of honoring you is bringing what I can bring to the table. The old-fashioned cookouts where you say, okay, I'm going to bring the tuna salad. Somebody's going to bring the fried chicken. Somebody's going to bring the macaroni and cheese and the salad. Somebody doesn't have much. And you say, well, hey, go to the store and get some paper plates. They got off easy, but they still brought it. So it took everybody to bring together a meal, and we sit around. We don't worry about who brought what. Everybody brought something, and we sit around and have a meal that we couldn't have had in tough times when that paycheck didn't come yet. So we don't even think about that. We have each other and the energy that we share. So for that, I have to respect you and love you. Even before we knew who you were loving us, right? So we have to respect you on that level.
Well, that's true.
That's right.
Y'all are my children.
And you got some great grands and great grands that whether they see you face to face or not, they'll feel the love from the work that you left for them to devour.
What is this with my nose? It's driving me crazy.
Well, we don't want you to say that too often. For someone who may not know you, they say, wait a second, the first show they did was 10 hours and now she's rubbing her nose. You don't want them to say that, that you were doing something you were supposed to do to keep you up.
But you know what's...
But we know that. Stamina.
Mm-hmm. What's happening now is something that I expected. People who didn't take me seriously all this while. 80 some years I've been on this road. They have known me. Didn't take me seriously. And some went beyond not taking me seriously to actually being angry with me because of what I teach and how I teach. And now that I am leaving, well, first of all, before that, all of a sudden, when I started appearing on your show, all of a sudden the work began to blow up. All of a sudden they see all these followers and subscribers, and then they learn I'm leaving for good. Not dying. Not yet.
Only ascending.
Now, all of a sudden, when I am super busy trying to pack stuff, this spot that you see here, this is the only one where you don't see boxes. I saved just this spot. So I am super busy trying to, do everything in an organized manner. And of course, there are legal things that have to be done. All kinds of things that have to be done. They all require time. And now, all of a sudden, people want to come to my apartment and talk under the guise. And I tell them, sorry, you had me all this time. You didn't know that I was on loan? I was on loan. I go where I am sent. So you should have gotten it all these years when you were resenting what I was teaching. Had I been of another ethnic persuasion, that values knowledge. I wouldn't have had time to even feel old because family members would have been sending me their children. Instead, I'm resented and, talked about in disrespectful ways. And yeah. And I have endured it because I know who I am and I know what I'm here to do. But they didn't realize I was only on loan. And now I'm called to go somewhere else. Sorry, I don't have time to talk. I don't have time to just go out to lunch and hang out. There is no time because I'm doing all this by myself. I had a backache for 3 weeks. I hated getting up in the morning because, I was stiff and sore. And I just had to work on it as I continued to do this job of, packing up and pulling and pushing and lifting. At a 3-week backache, it was hell. So I had to resort to soaking in the bathtub every other day. And finally, my body just sort of relaxed. Those muscles stopped cramping and stuff. But yeah, now all of a sudden, everybody wants me. What? Come on. Come on. Watch the YouTube videos. That's the best I can do for you. No, I'm serious. That's the best I can do. Just watch the YouTube. No, I don't have time to sit and chat and teach you for an hour on a telephone. I don't have time for you to come by and I don't have time. Your time has run out. Now I have to take care of mine. So, all right. Bye, y'all.
All right.
As
Thank
usual,
you,
it is
Jake.
wonderful being with you.
I'm looking forward to next week, part 2. Many people have
Yes.
expressed that already. You have us on the edge of our seat, and we're set up like a Mike Tyson uppercut before the right cross comes in. So we're waiting for you.
Okay. And frankly, I will contact you early next week. We've talked about it before, but I've cut out something. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a waste of time.
Right.
I don't have time to waste. And since I cut that out, I now opened up space where I can do 2 shows.
All right. We're good.
But not being so specific, more like a chat.
Right.
Where we just discuss some issue like you do sometimes, even if you don't see my face. Right?
Right. That can be done. The audio only. Any way you want to do it, we'll discuss it. And I'll tell you the options. We have a lot of options. Trust me.
Okay.
I got a lot of tricks in my bag. So we can do whichever way you want to do it.
Okay.
No.
Because like now, I have to hook up about 15 different little lamps. Make sure no boxes, no boxes are visible, and packing materials and God knows what. Oh, Lord.
You know what? You go to your favorite restaurant, you go in the kitchen, you're going to see a lot of boxes stacked up of food, pasta, cans of tomato paste, all kind of things. Nobody worries about that because they're eating and digesting a good meal that's made from that same place with the boxes. So all of those boxes mean you have it in your head. you did the work so you can spit it out easy for us to digest. But a lot of us are not going to go in those boxes because it's a little too hard for us right now. So you did the work.
Yeah. And I'm hoping these illustrations help.
Big
All
time.
right. Sayonara.
Okay. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody. Thanks for coming on through. You know, we're going to always have surprise shows coming up and more stuff. I'm cooking up a whole lot of things, and I'm looking forward to you all being there. And thanks for the support. Like, share, and subscribe as always. And, of course, I'm going to go back to work and see what I can cook up in my kitchen so we can have shows on the LANCESCURV show. Always go to LANCESCURV.com if you don't see me on social media, because I'm such a bad boy and I say things that people don't like. They should have knocked you down. So you can go there to LANCESCURV.com and catch everything we've done over the last almost 23 years coming this February. Thank you all so much.
Why are we called Negroes? Why are we deaf, dumb, and blind? Why is everybody making progress, yet we seem to be lagging so far behind? Why are we mistreated? Why are we in this condition, stripped of our name, our language, our culture, our God, and our religion? Here in America, all of our religious training has been gotten by the preacher. He has told us of a heaven way up in the sky that we can't enjoy now, but rather after we die. But all of the years that we're living, for us there's nothing but hell, pain, torture, and misgiving. Yet the Bible speaks of a heaven filled with material luxury, which the white man and the preacher has right here, so we see. So my friend, take it for what it's worth. Your heaven and your hell is right here on this earth. So let's check back into history, which rewards all research and tells us plainly that before the white man gained entry to the East, he was living in the caves of Europe, a ravenous beast, eating juniper roots and eating flesh raw, till God sent Moses to civilize him and teach him the law. Then, following Marco Polo, an explorer, he gained entry into Asia and Africa. From China, he took silk and gunpowder. From India, he took jute, manganese, and rubber. He raped Africa of her diamonds and her gold. From the Mideast, he took barrels of oil untold, raping, robbing, and murdering everything in his path. The whole black world has tasted of the white man's wrath. So, my friend, it's not hard to tell. A white man's heaven is a black man's hell. came to America, we were living in the East. By the Nile River, we were living in luxury, enjoying freedom, justice, and equality. We wore silken robes and slippers of gold. We were the wealthiest and the wisest people, I'm told. Now we are the poorest of the poor. Nobody wants us at their door. So, my friend, it's easy to tell. White man heaven is black man hell. When the white man came to America, he told the Indian, I am your white brother. He said, red man, I'll treat you the best. Yet and still he pushed the Indian further west with his white woman and firewater. Tricks and lies, he stole America. The original owner of this nation is cooped up on a reservation. So my friend, it's easy to tell. White man heaven, black man hell. He needed someone to work the land. His back was too weak. He needed you, black man, so he commissioned Sir John Hawkins to commit the world's most grievous sin, to take a man who's born to be free and bring him down to slavery, to sell a man as merchandise, on his body put a price. Oh, my friend, it's easy to tell. White man heaven is a black man hell.